in the beginning of the song, I say like, "I want perfect with you," and at the end of the song, there's an excerpt of her saying like, "No, you want your idea of perfect."
Mm.
Fucked me up. Fucked me up because I was just like, "Oh shit!" Like I do. I don't want I want what I vision as perfect. I haven't even asked you what your idea of perfect is, and so I think in that situation, she was smothering herself to love me the way that I wanted to be loved or the way that I told her to be loved. And I was smothering myself because I never even asked her.
This is Sad Boy Radio.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Sad Boy Radio. I'm your host, Matt, and today, man, we got a very special guest in the building. You're a legend in Chicago yourself,
Stop
bro.
it, bro. I appreciate it.
You've worked with a lot of legends in Chicago: Chance the Rapper, Saba, Femdot, NoName, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg, bro. Recently, you just went on tour with, how do you pronounce it? I don't want to pronounce it
Carry
wrong.
flow.
And you just dropped your own EP, Coffee Grounds. Man, go ahead and introduce yourself, bro.
I'm the mind. I am a multifaceted, I don't know, multidisciplined artist from Philly by way of Chicago. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird for me to talk about myself. That's
You don't be talking about yourself, bro?
not like that. Nah, 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 nah.
I know a lot, so we're gonna
Appreciate it.
dig into it today.
Let's get it.
I would ask you how you came up with the mind. With the mind,
Yeah,
but we'll talk about that later because I feel like that question leads to a very deeper meaning.
for sure.
We'll do the easy questions
Let's
first.
go.
For you, how do you feel like working with artists like Chance the Rapper and Saba early on helped you find your sound as an artist?
Being completely honest, I think we were all finding our sounds together at that exact same time. One of the most beautiful things about community is like the privilege to um find uh the kind of iron sharpers iron type situation. And I think like a lot of us were just in the right place at the right time. Um Blessed to just kind of like start figuring out things together. I think at the same time when Saba was doing everything that he was doing on the west side, we had a loft, we being them people, this production collective that I used to be a part of. We had a loft like in Pilsen, and we were like kind of honing our sound and trying to figure out what we were trying to do. And then Mick Jenkins, all of those guys came around, and from that, I think if anything, the comfortability that they had and like what they had was what made me feel more comfortable in what I was doing. I think as artists, we sound obscure, or you like listen, or you try to find somebody who sounds like you, and you don't find that, and it scares you. It makes you feel like, oh damn, like maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And then you find a group of individuals or a collective, and those people are just as much on their own individual paths, and they don't sound like anybody. And then that gives you that confidence, I guess, to say like, oh, well, I must be doing something right. It's like, why would I be in the same room with them?
And previously, you've mentioned that being in the room with artists like that, it creates an imposter syndrome because you're around so many talented people and it makes you think like, why am I in this room?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you still see that affecting you today?
I'm a little bit, wiser now, and I think a little bit more confident in my skill. It was also these portions of time where I was spent away from my craft, dealing with whatever the hell I had going on, whether it was depression, whatever, and while I was doing that, my peers were still sharpening their steel and still getting better. So then when you would come back into those spaces in those rooms, you're like, damn, I feel like people just jumped ahead of me so much. Um, and now I kind of feel like I'm working just as hard. And so it doesn't feel as, I guess, impostery. Now more so it feels like I never wanted it to feel like a charity case. I never wanted to feel like I was the cool guy, so that's why I was in the rooms. I always wanted to feel like I was equally as talented, and that's the reason why I was there. Um, and my friends have confirmed me in that. But you imposter syndrome happens from like trauma that sometimes has nothing to do with me. Sometimes it's just the aspect of how I've looked at life or how I've gone through life that I'm just like, damn, I don't belong here sometimes. And then other times I'm like, damn, I'm cold. Like I'm in the right place. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. but it just depends. It depends. It wavers. It's like a wave. Um, but recently, in this current moment right now, nah, I feel like I'm good.
You're cold. You're the hottest thing out right now.
Not the hottest thing out, but I'm one of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a couple suns in the solar system. You feel me?
We talked to Daylight Tone last week, and I had mentioned that, growing up, it's certain things that you're told or the
Mhm.
certain situations that you're put in that shape your mentality about yourself.
For sure,
So if you're told that you're the best, you're going to think you're the best,
guaranteed.
right?
Hmm.
I was just talking to one of my coworkers today. Baseball players, a lot of them, they have this ego. They have this thing about them.
Yeah,
And it's because growing up, they're told they need to be the best or they are the best.
yeah,
Football players are coached to be better.
yes,
Football
yeah,
players are told your spot is replaceable every single time.
yeah.
Same thing with basketball
Hmm.
players, right? So when you're put in that predicament, when you're told that you could always be better, it creates this idea that maybe I'm not good enough. So now I
Guaranteed,
need to reach a certain height where nobody can tell me anything.
guaranteed.
And yeah, that shit will fuck you up, bro.
Like truly, I think like I got to this place where nobody can check me or like nobody can self correct me better than I can correct myself. You know what I'm saying? You can't critique me harder than I'm gonna critique myself. I'm gonna look at myself with the craziest list of like, oh, I ain't hit this level, I ain't hit this level, I ain't do this, I ain't do this, that, and there. So you might be like, yo, it's a great song, and I'm gonna be like, shit sucks. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, it could be so much better. And they're like, why? Because I'm not comparing myself to what your standards may be. My standards is like I'm looking at Stevie Wonder, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm looking at like Michael Jackson. I'm looking at like, you know what I'm saying, Aretha Franklin. Who is the greatest motherfuckers? Marvin Gaye. I wanna make a song that like if you heard it 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, you like, this motherfucker is cold. Like he had it. And that's if you listen to any old school song right now, anything from the 70s, anything from like the 50s, you gonna be like, damn, this shit fucking fire. Some from, not from the 50s, maybe 60s. Like, you know what I'm saying? You gonna be like, this shit is fucking fire. And I want that effect. I want to create shit like that.
I genuinely think you do create that effect. And I'm not
Thank you.
saying that because you're sitting in front of
I
me.
appreciate that.
I'm saying that because your music is something that you have to digest. You have to sit
For
down
sure.
and listen to it and really listen to what you're saying. You need to
Yeah.
listen to the effects and the sequencing and the
Yeah.
layering that you're doing to really hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And when artists do certain things, it's their way of self expression, right?
For sure.
9mm, for example.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think about that song and you use the distortion in the voice to represent somebody else.
Yeah.
Now, on top of that, in between that, you say like, "Oh, he's only 10 years old,"
Yeah.
and he's like, "I don't care." So
So was I. Yeah.
you listen to that stuff
Yeah.
and you really pay attention to like what's going on. That's the first song that really like stood out to me when I was going through the project.
Fire.
That was the first one that stood out to me, and I'm like, "Damn, that shit's cold." And then the ending, right? Sorry for the disruption.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really think about that and you think about the story and it's like, damn, like that shit was cold. And it was only a minute and 30 seconds.
Trying to tell a story with some type of potency. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, like, and I think I get caught up on that, because it's not too many people who I feel like can feel 9mm. Or maybe I'm tweaking on that. But I think a lot of times when I make a song like that, it is from, and I think that's why the end of the song ends with like, sorry for the interruption. Cause I'm like, I felt like I needed to get that out. I ain't care who listened to it or fucked with it. I cared about it. And I was like, there's a story being told about young kids who, from different communities and shit like that, who come into this world and we're given a fucked up hand. They grow up, they then raise other little kids who are given a fucked up hand, and then they put like the craziest hardships on them and be like, yo, you better not, that's the end of it. Like, you better not fucking die. Like, I know you're in the worst predicament ever. I know life has handed you the worst hand ever, but like, you better not fucking die. And that's what I was told as a kid. And I was like, I don't care if Joe Blow hears this and doesn't understand it or whatever like that. That's why I said sorry for the interruption. But I needed to say it. Like, I needed somebody in that other 9-year-old kid, that other 10-year-old kid, whoever, like to hear that and be like, damn, I see you, or I'm seen, or like there's a different option. I can maybe I'll end up here.
Even for me, like I can't necessarily say I relate to it,
Yeah.
But I can understand, like, that's a reality in America. That's a reality around the world. A lot of people might not be given the best situations. And you don't even gotta look at it on the violent note. You
Not
just
at
got
all.
you like you
In
said,
anyone, yeah,
at no point did you mention like, kids are given certain things in their lives. No,
for
you
sure.
said they're given a fucked up hand.
Inherently across the board. It doesn't matter what color. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you're given a fucked up hand, you still have to you better not fucking die. Like that's what, the American dream is. You better not fucking die. Like, you know what I mean? Like not scratch and survive and this is that and the third. It's more so of like, dog, if you don't die, you've won the game. Like that's what we're trying to do. And I'm not saying that if somebody dies that they lost the game. I'm saying that like that's what they tell us. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't lose.
If you even think about it going further, right? You don't die, but you survive. Now, what's your reward?
Come on.
Because you're still in certain situations and you're still given this fucked up mentality
For sure.
that now you're passing on to other people,
Guaranteed.
or you're just so fucked up that you don't even have the opportunity to pass it on to somebody else.
You don't even know what you're passing on. You don't even realize that, like, that you come into contact with somebody else and whatever fucked up mess that you have, your energy, like, is now transmuted and turned into somebody else. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or like now somebody else has to walk around with that on them just because you met, like, you ain't do nothing. You just cross paths. Like, you know what I'm saying? Had a small conversation, something dumb. Like, and now all of a sudden, like, a bad moment, like somebody stepped on your shoe, somebody bumped you. Like, you just turned a very simple moment into a bad moment just because of your trauma. It had nothing to do with anything that that person did to you. It was a whole bunch of other shit that happened in your life.
Shit, we're gonna talk about that
Exactly.
later on, bro. Hey, that
Let's
shit
go.
wasn't even planned, but
Let's
we
go.
got that written down.
Indeed, indeed.
How's your music changed from summer camp to Don't Let It Go to Your Head to Coffee Grounds?
Summer camp was more fantastical. It was rooted in like a kid looking at the world in a very optimistic eye and trying to use music to paint a picture of what I want the world to look like to me or what it like almost like Alice in Wonderland. Like um and then I think and it was still rooted in realness, but it was also like me coming to terms with like my mortality and also me coming to terms with like I was getting in my own way of whatever I wanted to do, right? Don't Let It Go to Your Head was more of a very realistic, rooted situation where I like painted pictures as vividly as I possibly could. I didn't want to make it fantastical. I didn't want to make it sweet to digest. I wanted it to be as poignant and as potent as I possibly can make it. Um, and then Coffee Grounds is the refresher. Like it's more of a palate cleanser. Like like I wanted to reset it all. Like because now I feel like my music is kind of like in between the two. Like you know what I'm saying? I think it's fantastical, but it's also rooted in realness. And so um because of that, like I needed something to restart the palette. 'Cause I felt like Don't Let It Go to Your Head was so it got dark for a second. Like,
Oh,
you
it
know what
was
I'm saying?
dark.
You know what I mean? Like I just felt
Yeah.
like it just like everything just went super dark. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not that dark. I try to be happy here and there. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, truth be told, um, if you can't talk about the sadness without talking about the happiness. You know what I'm saying? There's moments of joy even in the saddest parts of our life where you're just like, damn, like I smiled, like you know what I'm saying, but shit was fucked up around me. So I think I'm trying to find a way paint those pictures too, like you know what I'm saying, to be joyous, be happy, to be excited, be fucking present, and not just everything is rooted in my trauma and in the past. Some shit is rooted um, in the future and being optimistic.
And there's something that you mentioned right there, right? Even in my happiest times, there's still sadness surrounding me.
Yeah,
And that was exactly what was happening to you when you were at Columbia, right?
yeah,
You mentioned that you were severely depressed,
yeah.
but you had all these good things going on around
Nice.
you. You were in all these rooms that helped you continue to grow.
Yeah.
What was going on at that time that was really impacting you mentally that you went as far as saying I was severely depressed?
You never realize that you like fucked up until like afterwards. You know what I'm saying? Like I think one of the craziest things about my time at Columbia was so let me put it like this. I was I grew up in foster care, right? And so fast forward, my my dad took me in at probably like 15, 16. I went to college at 18. So I was in a homeless shelter prior to that. My dad brings me in. I live with him for 2 years or whatever like that. I then they then dropped me off at college. You know what I'm saying? That whole span of time, I never dealt with what happened prior to that. I never dealt with all of that shit, right? So the first thing that I remember is uh my dad driving away, like from we drove up from Philly. I remember them driving away, and I remember like all of that shit slowly starting to hit me, you know, more and more as fucking time went on. And I didn't even realize that it was hitting me. I just realized that I was like separating myself a lot from like a lot of people. Um, Not even a lot of people, from a lot of my friends. I couldn't cope with it. Like I think like everybody else was coming from like two-parent households and uh really like existing in like this college life, and I just felt like I was a fraud. Like, you know what I'm saying? I felt like I had left like my family behind. Like, you know what I'm saying? I felt like I had left like my friends behind, like people who I grew up in foster care with. And I felt like it was like some survivor's guilt type shit. Like I shouldn't be alive type shit. And like I shouldn't be able to have these happy moments and exist in these spaces. And I think I wasn't allowing myself to be as joyous as I could, you know? Um, but it wasn't my fault. It just was what it was. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you still go to sleep at night and still have nightmares about whatever the fuck that was, you haven't dealt with it. And even if you do deal with it, you still probably gonna have nightmares. But it's like understanding that it's a nightmare. It's a terror. It's supposed to be dark. Um, in order for you to understand that like you came out of that. Like, you know?
So in that moment when you saw them driving off, do you feel like it reinstilled that feeling of like I'm alone now?
I don't even think I realized it at first. Like I think it was more so of a thing that started happening like as the year went on. I was just like, hold on, I'm not from here. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not from here. If something happened, like who do I call? Like, you know, like it would take them a flight to get here. It just, little subtle stuff like that where like my homies were from like Milwaukee or like the outskirts of Chicago. They would just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna go home for the weekend or whatever." Like, I couldn't, you know what I'm saying? I would have to hop on a flight and shit. And I was just once those moments is the ones that like really kind of woke me up to like, "Oh yeah, you by yourself." But yeah, it was, I guess that abandonment aspect too. Like you just kind of start thinking like, "Damn, like, oh, I'm just by myself, I'm alone." But, I think the greatest thing about that time, like you said, these happy moments and that sad shit, um, was I started me and my dad got closer. We just started having more and more conversations. Like I would call him more. Um, a lot of shit that didn't make sense when I was younger started making more sense, as I got older. And it was just like I think it strengthened our relationship. So
So something you mentioned there, right? Growing up in the system, the trauma that had to have instilled in you,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
I could never speak on it, so
For
I'm gonna
sure.
allow you to speak on it.
Uh,
How did growing up in the system impact you mentally?
we spoke about something earlier about like imposter syndrome or feeling worthy. You get those feelings instilled in you when, from parental love. Your mom telling you like, "Oh, I love you," or your dad telling you like, "Oh yeah, I love you," and what I'm saying, taking you to baseball games, whatever. Woo, woo, woo. It's just like little subtle shit like that. Um, or just like hugs, or just like all of those different things. When you don't have those, like I was in foster care system since I was, a little kid. Um, you don't kind of get those things. So you always feel like you're trying to be accepted, be loved. Um, I think you constantly feel um, unworthy of shit. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like like I said, at the base level, you never got those things. So it's just kind of like always like you feel like you fighting tooth and nail for everything. Um, and so like I said, I explained it to somebody like this. It's a lot of skills that I had that were meant for survival and not for living. You know what I mean? If you found a kid that was like, you know, um, grew up raised by wolves and shit like that, he's gonna have a different way of like living or what he thinks than a person who grew up in a house and this is that and the third, right? You know, if I'm gonna make a fire in the middle, if I make a fire in the middle of a house or whatever like that, I could burn that shit down. But if I make a fire in the middle of the woods, that's gonna keep me warm for the night, you know. And those are like skills that I had uh, that didn't serve me anymore when it got to the point of like trying to just live life. You know what I'm saying? Just trying to exist fucking in relationships and everything else. Um, and I didn't realize that until like people started like pointing it out. Like, damn, like, are you okay? Like, you know what I'm saying? And you just start doing shit. Like, I lied a lot, but I lied for survival when I was in the system. You know what I'm saying? You say shit that you don't need to.
What do you think's a moment that sticks out when you think about that?
The system in general.
When you say that you did shit just to survive.
This one is kind of funny, but it's not really funny. But it's like me and my sisters used to think that like our mom was Holly Berry. I saw like losing Isaiah, like and it was this like losing Isaiah is this movie starring Holly Berry where she's like she like loses her kid, and I just was like, oh yeah, our mom is Holly Berry. So I would lie and tell people like, yeah, my mom like Holly Berry and shit. But it was a survival thing, like you know what I'm saying. Instead of dealing with the morbid, you know, reality that like, oh, I don't know my mom or my mom is somewhere else and so on and so forth. I made up a person. Like, you know what I'm saying? There was sometimes I would say shit like, "Oh yeah, my grandmother told me this or whatever." And no, she didn't. Like, you know what I'm saying? My grandmother was dead. Like, you know what I mean? It was like so many things that I was like, "Oh, damn, like I'm not that's not real." Like, you know what I'm saying? I created like this whole family base in my head that didn't exist cuz I didn't grow up with it. And then eventually when I started forgetting shit. You know what I'm saying? I started like trauma will make you forget shit very quickly, have a very quick memory, very like a uh, the ability to forget like moments passing. But that's not a great skill to have when you're living life because you'll do something amazing and people will be like, "Yo, you remember when we?" I'm gonna be like, "No, I didn't. I don't." It's impossible for me to remember that because the trauma thing that I built up, which was just this fast memory to get over shit as quickly as possible, is now affecting my memory to be able to live in the moment and be accepting of like life and love and so on and so forth. Um, always thinking that love was temporary.
Do you feel like this was the main reason that you say you struggled to understand yourself?
Yeah, if you only know yourself in a world of trauma or a world based in trauma, like it's hard for you to understand your life or understand yourself in a place of happiness and joy. Um, the only way that you could possibly look at it is from a standpoint of if all I've ever seen is trauma, then when happiness comes, I'm gonna be like, whoa, why does this feel weird? You know what I'm saying? Why does something feel off here? You're gonna constantly ask yourself like the questions that you don't need to ask. So, like you gonna, I don't know, do shit that you would do in trauma, but you're doing it when you're in your happiest moments. It doesn't make sense.
That shit sounds fucking tough, especially
It's
not being
fuck.
able to recall shit, right?
Yeah,
Because, like you said, now it's impacting me in not only my bad moments, but my good moments.
for sure.
Now I'm having relationships where this baggage gets carried over.
Guaranteed.
Once again, like we were talking about with the trauma and the baggage, you carry that over and it starts to impact the people that you surround yourself with.
For sure.
You start to see them feeling some type of way because of the circumstances you were given and the way it shaped you.
Yeah.
And then it makes you feel like you're the problem.
Yeah. For sure.
And it's like, unfortunately, my situation is what created this.
Yeah.
And you can understand that or you can't.
Right.
And if you're not willing to understand it, then I don't know how we're gonna continue doing this shit.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
That's the hard part about being in a relationship.
Yeah.
You need to understand one person's issues and they need to understand yours. And if you can't come to an agreement on that, then it's like, what are we doing here?
Like 1 + 1 = 3. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like your shit plus my shit equals some new shit. You know what I'm saying? Not us as one type shit. You know.
What do you feel like's the trauma that has continuously haunted you?
Where do I start? I don't know. Like I said, that the absence of parents, in the in that in that very in that adolescent phase of like you trying to figure out like who you are, and being in places where people just view you as a check or view you as like an, uh, an opportunity to, I don't know, have some type of clout, like, oh yeah, I got some foster kids or some shit like that.
And now you see that too, right?
Yeah,
Being an artist,
yeah,
you see that people only want you for a certain period of time, that they only
guarantee.
want you for one thing, and then once they get it, they
It's
never
over.
talk to you again.
Yeah,
That's the shit that drives me fucking nuts,
yeah,
especially recently, bro.
yeah.
I was talking to, I was talking to somebody about it,
Mm,
and I'm like, it's frustrating that there's people that contact me.
mm,
They tell me like, let's do it.
mm,
Interview goes great,
mm.
but they don't follow through with what I've asked of them.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Simple stuff. Post a link in the bio.
yeah,
Collaborate on the
yeah,
post.
yeah.
I'm not even asking you to make the post.
Right,
I'm sending you a collab request
and that's
to
it.
do it,
Yeah,
and you can't follow through on that. It's
yeah,
like now I feel used, and it's like, man, I just put my time and effort to care about you, to show the world who you are at your core.
one thing I'm starting to realize about this industry, and it's the weirdest part about it, is everything's fake. You know what I'm saying? And I think like that was the shit. Like somebody just recently told me that. I think it was either Chris or you. And they just basically said like everything's fake. And I was like, damn, like, and I'm the kid who believed that everything was real. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been walking around and treating everything like it's, and that's why I've been getting my feelings hurt, because I've been walking around and treating everything like it's the realest thing on the planet. And everybody else is knows that it's wrestling. What? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's gonna fuck you up after a while. But I refuse to start treating this shit like it's fake. I can't. Like my heart's in it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So because of that, I'ma still move with that purity. I'm still move with that love. And if I get hurt or whatever like that, I got defenses up a little bit better now. But at the same time, if you still move with that purity, if you still move with like your heart in it and being like, damn, like I want to make sure that I get the best out of motherfuckers and I want to get the best product, so on and so forth, or whatever like that for them, you'll never lose. You'll get rewarded in the end every time.
I think it's hard once you go through it a certain amount of times.
Mhm.
It's like a relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
The first time, all right, we'll fix it. The
Yeah,
second time, I'm a little less, willing to fix it. By the
yeah.
third time, nah, I'm good.
It's done. Yeah,
And that's how it all goes. Whether it's business, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a friendship.
yeah.
And it's crazy because with friendships, we tend to actually give them less chances than we do with anything else.
Facts.
Your friends, they fuck you over one time and you're mad at them. And I wouldn't say you're like real close friends,
Yeah,
right? Your real close friends, they're gonna fuck up, and you're still gonna be homies.
yeah.
But those friends that, you just started with, it's like you get one chance and then you fuck up and the relationship's dead. It's kind of weird that we give that leeway to people we don't know when it comes to business, but then
Mm.
friends, it's like, nah, I'm not giving you that.
I think because of the closeness, you expect people to not hurt you more. You know what I'm saying? So it's like your closeness to me comes with expectations. You know what I mean? My expectations of you are higher now. So you get less chances versus a person that I didn't have any expectations of. You see what I'm saying? So it's like I didn't have any expectations of you. So if you do something or whatever like that, all right, that's strike one. I didn't even know. I didn't even expect that. But if you like are close to me and you do something, you don't get no strikes. Like, why you hurt me? You know me. Like, you know what I'm saying? That don't make no sense. And so like I think that's the reason why we kind of move like that. But like, especially like with a spouse, like I'm talking to somebody and she break me and it's like, "Dog, I told you. Like I told you I told you all the spots. If anything, you putting your finger in the wound now. Like, you know what I'm saying? And you're like, you're twisting a knife. That's crazy. Like, why would you do that? And I told you already that I was hurt. That don't make no sense. Versus a person who doesn't even know that I have wounds. You know what I'm saying? They only know you from the outside perception. Like, so then if you hurt me, it's like, you ain't really know me. Not your fault.
So then let's talk about the relationship aspect. It's something that you mentioned to me, right? Kind of finding what that definition of love looks like now.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, how has your trauma impacted the relationships you've had?
Hit ahead with a early on relationship. And I remember it just broke me. I remember I was like sitting in the car and like this girl cheated on me and I was just like, and I don't even want to say that she cheated on me. You know what I'm saying? because I don't even want to give it that. I'm gonna say this: she had gave me all of the warning signs that she wanted to leave, and I didn't believe her. You know, and then from that, the last strike was like, "Oh, I'm gonna just go do my thing," which I then took as cheating, whatever. Which it would be because the parameters of the relationship wasn't broken. But I still understand now that like she had already gave me the precursors that she wanted to leave. Right? I find out all the shit, figure out everything, and then I remember just sitting in my car and I called my homie Via and I start crying. Like I'm like crying the hardest I've ever cried in my life. And I'm like, yo, why she don't want me? Why she don't want me? Why she don't want me? And then I realized that I wasn't talking about her. I was talking about my mom the entire time. And I was like, damn, this feeling of being unwanted had crept into this situation, into this relationship. And this person had told me that they didn't want me no more. And I was fighting to keep it there only because I had been left as a child. So I was like, damn, I don't want to ever be left again. I don't ever want to feel that again. So that was it rearing its ugly head. And then I finally after I realized that like, I kind of pulled myself back together and I started trying to focus in on every other aspect of my life where those like small points were happening. You know what I'm saying? Like where else was I like holding on to something just because I didn't want to feel that pain again that I felt as a child?
What did you find?
You do it constantly. You do it in everything. You know what I'm saying? Like you say, you do it in like somebody getting on a song with you, and then after that, like yo, take my verse off. Oh shit! Like why you don't want to be here? Like you know what I'm saying? Like what did I do wrong? Am I unworthy of this? Like you know what I mean? Um, you find it in moments of like business deals and stuff like that. You be like, damn, like oh why they don't fuck with me? You didn't recoup. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I'm thinking of it from a standpoint like, oh, you said we was family and you left me. Like, and so it was just moments like that that kept on rearing its head. Like my friendships, like I would get mad at my friends really, really badly. And it was just because, again, like we said before, I expect you not to hurt me if I told you about my wounds. You know what I'm saying? But that's unrealistic. Uh, they don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even if I told them about a wound, they don't know how deep that cut goes, you know?
In the song Miscommunications, you say, I'm guilty of empty love, and you say those excuses, but I don't want to break your heart, and apologies are useless. And I mention this because obviously we're talking about relationships, right? The
Yeah.
traumas that instill these feelings in you,
Yeah.
going through that situation where somebody betrays your trust, that's where it starts.
Yeah.
It starts with the fact that now I can't feel anymore. Giveon has a song about it. And in the song, I'm sure you've heard it,
Yeah.
Scarred. He says, um, girl, come closer. You're under me, but I'm not over all the things I told you. Oh, girl, I'm broken, numb to all the emotions. My last love was cold, so now I gotta be the coldest.
Yeah.
And once again, like everybody's felt that shit before. Everybody's been through that shit where like I can't feel anymore.
Yeah.
So when you wrote this, where were you?
Miscommunication is a whole song about like ghosting somebody and like then gaslighting them. You know what I'm saying? It's just like it's like, you know, I think the parts where I finally started to realize what I was doing, it was like that's why the chorus is the girl saying like you don't have to lie. Like let's just keep it light. It don't have to be this serious. And you start to think that like y'all have to lie to like be where I'm at. And then it's just like once you start to realize that you can sit in this truth, that's that part. You know what I'm saying? Where I finally started being like, yo, I'm sorry. Like, you know what I mean? I want to tell you the truth about like why I'm fucked up. And that's not an excuse. That's just reality. And you can either accept me for it or we can move from we can move on from the situation. Most of the time you're gonna move on from that situation, but and I think in that case, it was just like I was still apologizing for that. Like, I'm sorry that I'm not capable of giving you what you need right now because I'm fucked up and I've been fucked up.
Sad boys for real.
Super sad boy. Sad boy is up by 20, bro.
Do you feel like you're at a point now where you can express and feel love?
I do. I think I'm more honest with myself. I think and by being more honest with myself, I'm more honest with others. Uh, kind of understanding that whatever is going on with me is me. And it's not. I don't blame anybody else. I don't blame anybody else for those situations. I'm more so cognizant of like what I bring to the table whether that be trauma, whether that be joy, and all this other stuff. Um, but it also allows me to just be as authentically myself as possible. And I think that's the most freeing thing that you could ever do. Once people, if you could tell somebody exactly who you are and they can either accept it or not accept it, is I don't give a fuck no more. Like, you know what I'm saying? I really don't. I find myself in situations and I talk to people. Um, every woman that I've found myself in a relationship with recently is I want to be as honest as possible. I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to tell you something else and you get a false reality of what's coming from this. And then I don't also want to feel like I'm walking on eggshells to keep up a lie. If I'm broken, I'm gonna say I'm broken. So you don't step in glass.
I think that's the easiest thing to do,
For
right?
sure.
Being straight up and honest, like, this is where I'm at. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I like about the situation. This is what I don't like about the situation.
For sure.
Because that's the point where you feel like I'm okay now.
Yeah.
Being able to communicate this to you and letting you know what the situation is,
Yeah.
like you said, it's freeing. It
Yes.
allows me to feel good.
For sure.
I remember finding myself in that situation, in those positions where I would have to have those conversations. And, at the end of the day, they would get mad. Girls would get
For sure.
mad because you express to them, but it doesn't click until it clicks,
Yeah.
until they understand the reality of the situation. And
Yeah.
now it's
And
like
sometimes they don't.
sometimes they don't. And that's kind of like where a facade is kind of, they have this facade. Not that you created one,
But
but they created one
for
themselves.
sure.
We mentioned that you get one, two, three chances.
Yeah.
Your take on love changes each time that you go through those situations, each time that you go through a circumstance that just switches how you think.
Yeah.
That first love, there's an innocence to it. And when that innocence starts to fade, it's like, okay, it's going, and then eventually it's gone.
Yeah.
How do you feel like your definition of love has changed throughout these relationships?
I can't even I don't even remember what my first version of love even looked like. You know what I'm saying? I think it just I'm so hopeful in love now. And I think like before I was a hopeless romantic. I had a vision of what I thought relationships should look like. And then now I have an optimistic reality of what relationships can be. I don't expect anything from anybody else. Like I don't expect no woman to do anything crazy for me or this is that and the third. I don't. In that way, if anything happens, you surprise me. It's beautiful. Like it's like, damn, you did that. That's crazy. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? And I'm actually joyful in those moments instead of it being like any type of expectations on the situation. So my love now is more so who are you and if you could put everything down that you got on the table and I put everything that I got down on the table, like, can you accept me for everything and can I accept you for that? And if we can't, then this is beautiful. That was an amazing moment. And if we can, then like let's keep this shit going. Like, you know what I'm saying? And see like how far we can go. But I don't think I had that acceptance when I was younger. I think it was so many stipulations. Um, I think that like at any given moment somebody could like fuck me up and it was over.
That was kind of the tough thing for you, right?
Yeah.
Because starting off, you start off with all this baggage.
Yeah.
Your baggage is supposed to grow over time. The things that you have to deal with, the traumas that affect you on the day-to-day basis, those are supposed to grow. And you started off here when everybody was down here.
For sure.
So now you have this amount of baggage and people are, growing theirs. And sometimes it feels easier to stay with the person that created that baggage
Mm.
than to leave.
What's the saying? You rather be in a known hell than an unknown heaven. You know, like you would choose to be in a situation that's fucked up rather than like the possibility that something is better just because that person knows you.
And sometimes it's harder to be with the person that created that baggage because it's like, we can't fix it anymore. This is beyond repair, but we still keep trying just because we see that there's that history. Speaking of baggage, your album cover. I want
Facts.
I want you to talk about it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite pieces of art.
Thank you.
Talk about it.
It is a cover that is shot by a friend of mine, Nolis. But is a play on Renee Magritte. painting called Lovers, and it's like two people with like I think pillowcases or like some type of like cloth over top of their faces, and then we redid it with like plastic bags, like bodega bags, poppy store bags, whatever you want to call them, like over like the heads, and I think we did them a little bit tighter so you could just like see the expression on people's faces. But then it's like this couple kissing, and I think the thing that we wanted to kind of convey is like how with trauma is uh you suffocating and the other person suffocating, and y'all trying to love each other, and you not even realizing it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even realize your partner is fucked up and you fucked up and you just like, fuck it. We just trying to make this shit work. So I think that it was super aggressive to use like a plastic bag to put over somebody's head and then have that couple kiss. Shout out to my homies such and such and Taryn for doing that, because that is ridiculous. That's not me on that cover. But like it's still, I still feel that sentiment. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you walk into a relationship with trauma, you are suffocating yourself, and the other person is also suffocating, and neither one of y'all, like, eventually y'all gonna pass out. Eventually, like, y'all gonna die if y'all don't deal with this shit.
Hurt people hurt people.
Exactly.
I love that idea.
Yeah. Thank you.
The idea that you walk into this relationship with that trauma and you're just suffocating each other and you're trying to heal through these
You are.
people. You're trying to find yourself. You're trying to fix everything that's wrong about you, but you're trying to do it in the wrong way because you're doing it through somebody else.
Guaranteed.
You're not trying to find yourself. You're not trying to heal yourself.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes it comes down to that savior complex of
Mhm.
if I save this person, then I'll be okay.
Yeah. It doesn't work like that. Sadly. You can try to save as many people as you want. Eventually, if you're gonna have to deal with your shit.
How was this cover an expression of what you were going through at the time?
There are real quotes with me and my ex, not quotes, but like real voice memos on that tape. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think in the song C, it's a real argument. She said something to me that was so poignant. She was like, in the beginning of the song, I say like I want perfect with you. And at the end of the song, there's an excerpt of her saying, like, no, you want your idea of perfect. Fucked me up. Fucked me up because I was just like, oh shit, like I do. I don't want I want what I vision as perfect. I haven't even asked you what your idea of perfect is. And so I think in that situation, she was smothering herself to love me the way that I wanted to be loved or the way that I told her to be loved. And I was smothering myself because I never even asked her how she wanted to be loved or what she needed. And then by the time that it came, I was conforming to everything that I thought she wanted rather than being like, what do you actually want? Before I knew it, we like, killed each other off. Like, you know what I'm saying?
When you're in that situation, when you're forcing yourself to be this person that you're not,
Yeah,
it feels suffocating.
guaranteed.
It feels like you're just doing it to make the other person happy and you're
Guaranteed.
not even happy at your core.
You conforming, yeah.
What did you even do in that situation?
I finally got up the testicular fortitude to leave. And you know what I'm saying? Or to like just tell her the truth and just be like, yo, like I don't wanna do this anymore. Like, um, but it's what you said earlier. Like it's so easy to still be in a situation with someone because I'm just used to it. Like versus being in a situation with somebody that actually feels like we're growing and getting to these places. Um, and after a while I felt like I was holding her back. I felt like I wasn't like allowing her to live to her fullest expression because I never asked her and I just didn't want to be there. Had nothing to do with her. It wasn't her fault at all. She didn't do nothing wrong. She was perfect. But I had to, once I realized that shit, I just had to get up out of there just to like free her.
Do you feel like you were holding yourself back too by holding on to her?
I was holding on to the idea of what everybody thought of us. Like we looked perfect from the outside. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody thought that, we were so cute together and shit. And I never, inside, it was just so much that she put up with. Of like me trying to deal with my shit and figure out my shit. And after a while, I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna take some time to figure out my shit instead of trying to figure out my shit and you right here getting hit with everything, accidentally." Like,
Do you feel like your idea of perfect has changed since then?
yeah, I do.
What did it look like then versus now?
I thought I wanted an open relationship, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, be able to do whatever the hell I wanted and go out here and run around. And then after a while, it was just like, I'm cool with monogamy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm cool with just having one girl and like us just doing our thing. Cause then when the shoe gets put on the other foot,
It
is
don't feel
she
good.
like, oh, hold on, what you about to go do? Like, you know, I was like that. For the longest time, I was like, oh, I don't get jealous. Then I got jealous and I was like, hold on. Like, but it was like you opened this door, bro. Like you said this shit. You said, like, oh yeah, you could do what you want because you wanted to do what you want. I did what I wanted. And so did she. And so, like, because of that, like it changed. Now I want to be free. I just want to be with somebody who's like honest with me about who they are. And I'm honest with them about who I am. And you can accept me in all of my little quirks, and I can accept you for all of the shit that you got going on. That's perfect to me. Like that's perfect if she know me to the point where you're not even gonna get mad. I go out or you see a picture of me with somebody else, you don't even think like that's not even him. He don't even move like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not like I wouldn't take a picture or something like that, but like he don't move like if somebody lied on my name, she knows me. Like that's perfect. Like I don't gotta look any further. I don't gotta like ask questions about what's real.
Being through all you've been through, being through your woes with relationships, dealing with the traumas and the feelings of being abandoned, do you feel like it is possible to heal through others?
You gain a sense of perspective from seeing other people's hurt, right? Uh, you always think that your hell is the worst one until you hear about somebody else's hell, whatever like that. And I started to get to the place where I don't compare trauma or yeah, I might have went through all of this crazy ass shit, but you have probably went through something too, and that might be your worst moment. And I'm not gonna claim that mine is worse than yours. And from that, if we can do that, if I can see you for like your brokenness and your wholeness and your possibility for wholeness, then that allows me to see that same reflection in myself. Like, especially with acceptance. Somebody tells you, like, dog, I accept your broken pieces. I accept all of this other stuff, your sharp edges, your rough around and shit. It allows me to feel a little bit more comfortable, like trying to heal those edges. You know what I'm saying? Trying to heal those wounds. And if I see somebody else trying to figure their shit out, it helps me do the same. Like, you know what I'm saying? It helps me like realize like, oh, it's okay to be okay. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to like live in this reality anymore.
From the outside looking in,
Mhm.
it's easy to think that that might be the route that you chose to take, trying to heal through others, trying to find that safety, that feeling that you never had,
Yeah.
and gaining it from somebody else.
Right.
But not only that, you were the person that held your sisters up.
Yeah.
You have a twin sister, right?
Yeah.
Twin sister, you have another sister,
Multiple sisters. Like 9.
and then you have the song Atlas Complex,
Yeah.
holding the world up.
Yeah.
And in the song, you say, I'll play Atlas, my shoulders are broad, thank God. But I'm still learning to let go, still trying to hold on, still overthinking.
Mhm.
What were you referencing when you were talking about holding? What were you holding up?
You try to look at situations in terms of knowing the brokenness that other people I don't even want to say brokenness, knowing what other people come into situations with. And I'm I'm that guy. I don't I don't try to put my shit on nobody else. If anything, like I'll take shit off your shoulders because I feel like I'm built to carry shit. You know what I'm saying? Um, especially if it is to the benefit of like your mental capacity or like what especially your emotional growth or something like that. And I've done that in relationships. Like I said before, I'll conform and try to figure out ways to hold something together. And I think in relationships, I think in the way that I grew up and everything else, like I've constantly tried to hold things together. Like I've constantly tried to accept people for where they were at, and in doing so, ended up holding up a lot of bullshit. Like you know what I'm saying? Um, and that's fine because I've watched those people be able to like see everything that's going on in their lives now and take the reins from me. And I did kind of feel like that. I kind of felt like, like I was burdened with the 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 sentence to hold up the world on my back, whatever anybody else's shit was. Like I just constantly felt like that was my burden to carry.
What do you feel like it was you needed to let go of?
You said it earlier, like this superhero, this super, human uh, idea that you could save people. My uncle said something to me one time. He was like, "Yo, stop playing Superman. Um, look at life, and some people you can't. I'm not here to save anybody. I'm here to tell you my story and in hopes that you find your truth, whatever like that. Um, if that saves you or whatever like that, then that is so fucking beautiful. But I can only save myself, and in doing so, help you. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to like save anybody. I don't want to put that on my shoulders anymore. I don't want to like think that your burdens are mine to carry. I want to help you be able to carry your own burdens though.
Because the mind was created to be a superhero for you.
For me. Yeah,
So you weren't even supposed to be the superhero for other people.
not
You
at
were
all.
just trying to save yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now tell the people how the mind came about.
The mind came about after a, uh, a trip on LSD. Uh and I don't know. I realized that all of my trauma, everything that I had ever faced, like my hardships and everything else, was in my head. Like I had created them. I created those walls, and if I could create the walls, then I could also be the thing that created the thing to break them down. And then I was like, okay, if that's the case, then I can be my own superhero. Like I could be everything that I'm afraid of being. Like, I wanted to sing. And I was like, all right, cool. Like nobody want to hear me sing. So I was like, but the mind can. Like, so the first iterations of the mind was like I cover my face. I ain't even tell my friends, like, only if you recorded with me, you knew that I was the mind, you know? And I released songs on SoundCloud, like underneath that moniker, but without showing my face. And it was me allowing me that freedom and that space that I say that I have now because now I feel like I've fully accepted who he is. You know what I'm saying? I still feel like it's a two-parter. I still feel like there's me, Zarif, and Zig or whatever, and then there's me, the mind. And the mind can, Zarif has super social anxiety and the mind doesn't. Like, you know what I'm saying? And if I keep on putting myself in that place, then it'll allow me to exist in spaces that I never thought possible. The mind doesn't have imposter syndrome. Zarif does. Like, you know what I'm saying? The mind doesn't have like he's not I'm not I'm not as fucking, you know, uh I'm way more boisterous if as the mind. Like I could talk about everything. I could talk about this is that and third. But Zarif is he's not gonna be as open to talk about himself. So um I still feel like the mind gives me superpowers.
I feel that because, Sad Boy comes on and has hour-long conversations. In your day-to-day life, you don't have
Hour long
hour-long
conversation
conversations with
guaranteed.
people about real shit. So when you see me out and about at, some event, I'll just most likely be to myself,
For sure.
vibing, checking out what everybody else got going on.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna talk about myself unless somebody comes to talk about it
Mm,
because in reality, like you need to be here. You need to
yeah.
be in my space. You need
Yeah.
to understand the vibe and know what you're getting yourself into.
For sure.
I'm not gonna burden you with a fucking, I don't know, TED talk when we just met for the first time,
For
right?
sure.
So Sad Boy does that.
Yeah.
But Matt, I'll go about my day and I'll vibe.
Yeah.
In a previous interview, you mentioned that you couldn't be who you wanted to be. And that's also how the mind came about. So who is it you wanted to be?
So I wanted to express myself without the fear of judgment, without you know, the the doubt, without like the imposter syndrome. Um, I wanted to explore. I wanted to try, know, acting. I wanted to do whatever. You know what I'm saying? It was, and I think the mind constantly allows me to look at life through a lens of like everything's possible, you know? So, yeah, I who I want to be is a person who believes that everything is possible, not that I'm subject or burdened by my trauma. Like I can do anything, and it's not because of this, that, and the third. It's because I want to do it and I want to try.
What do you feel like stopped you?
Reality, you know what I'm saying? Um, Looking at the world through a lens of, damn, you're a foster kid from Philly, like who grew up like this. You know what I'm saying? Uh, And how could you become anything other than a statistic? And then trying to prove that wrong. I don't want to try to prove anything wrong. I just want to exist. You know, I don't want to live with that burden of what somebody thinks that I'm gonna become. Like I want to live with the possibilities of everything that I can be.
And you've done it, bro.
Thank you, bro.
You've worked on Chance's coloring book.
Yeah,
You've gone on tour.
yeah,
You've made your own projects.
yeah.
And there's still more to come.
Indeed.
And we didn't even touch on everything.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming through, bro. I
appreciate
really
you.
love the conversation.
Thank you,
Thank
man.
you for your patience.
Mm.
And shit, we're locked in, bro. Make sure you guys go ahead, check out theMIND. Make sure you check out his project. Don't let it go to your head. Coffee Grounds, Summer Camp. Check it all out.
Follow me on everything at theMIND, and yeah.
Make sure you go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Sad Boys for real. Peace out.
This is Sad Boy Radio.
Broken pieces, who's to blame?